Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is my co-host, Danny Gillette. And we're here to talk some transfer portal additions for Nebraska. We also got the number one upset of number one Purdue the other day, so it's been a pretty exciting week for the Huskers. Danny, in your parts, I know we got some news today with Bill Belichick. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that, man? How you taking that? Bill Belichick is not expected to no longer be the New England Patriots head coach today.
I figured that he wouldn't accept no general manager role and stay on as a coach. I mean, I don't have any, sources confirming that or whatever because I do write about the Patriots, but I figured that he would want full control and my guess is maybe Robert Kraft told him that, he can only be the coach and not the general manager, or he just decided to step down. But either way, it's a massive, massive day for the Patriots organization. And, you talk about guys who I would never thought, see out of their respective organizations and programs. We had Nick Saban yesterday and now Bill Belichick today. I mean, it's really kind of surreal because you think these things will last forever. And Bill's been here for 20 years. So I was actually, yeah, I was 5 when he came to New England, and now I'm 29, and so it's truly is the end of an era. It's nuts to think about, but I mean, yeah, between him and Saban, it's been quite the 24 hours of moves, and I'm curious to see if Nebraska on the Saban front pursues any Alabama players in the 30-day transfer window.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And yeah, Pete Carroll, another one this
Yeah.
week. So,
Yep.
I mean, you think about he won a national title and a Super Bowl. One of, I think, only four or five coaches who have done that. And then Saban yesterday. And yeah, it's going to be a sea change for college football. It could be impact the Big Ten too in Nebraska in the sense that Dan Lanning and Kalen DeBoer seem like they're two of the candidates on the list. I saw a plane tracking thing from Eugene to Tuscaloosa. So I have no idea if that's it, but people on Twitter, made the point that there's not too many, chart private flights going from Eugene to Tuscaloosa. So it seems like Dan Lanning might be, interviewing for the Alabama job, and that would change things, obviously, for would hurt Oregon going into next season, and they're obviously joining the Big Ten. So, but yeah, I think the other thing, we could talk about this too, but with Michigan winning the national championship, man, like I feel like that is a great sign for programs like Nebraska. And it shows like if you focus on your culture and you focus on the offensive and defensive lines and you get a good quarterback, ding, 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 Nebraska has all those things. You can win a championship. So like I feel more optimistic about the future of Nebraska football now than I ever have after watching Michigan go from 2-4 to winning a national championship. Like, why not Nebraska? Why not anybody that has the right kind of coach? And I think that I think Matt Rule is the same kind of coach that Jim Harbaugh is in that sense of building an elite culture. He knows how to focus on the trenches, and so yeah, I think Nebraska is in a really great spot moving forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see, just how punishing that Michigan defensive line was to the Washington offensive line, and we got a firsthand look at it in September. And it's going to be interesting. You mentioned DeBoer as a possible candidate for the Alabama job too. I hope he gets more recognition because he deserves a lot, and I feel like he gets undervalued at times nationally. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with all of this news. And I think Nebraska is positioned well. Maybe not national championship yet, but I do think the future is extremely bright. And it'll be interesting to see even what Ohio State does with Will Howard. I mean, Ohio State's loading up, and I think everybody realizes that Michigan probably won't be the same force that they have been over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. And Nebraska obviously added a guy from the transfer portal on Wednesday, so we'll get to that in just a second. Before that, if you haven't already, please do us the favor of hitting the subscribe button, get into the comment section, hit the like button on our videos. That really helps us out, helps other people find our content. But yeah, if you missed it yesterday on Wednesday, kind of a surprise commitment, Micah Mazzccua from Florida had entered the transfer portal. He was on Nebraska's radar a year ago. Surprisingly, went to Florida. Now he's coming in as a transfer. It's been reported that it's a walk-on type deal. It's not a scholarship offer, but he started 12 games last year for Florida. He started a lot over his career. And Danny, what are your thoughts about Micah Mazzccua coming to Nebraska?
The same day he went to Florida last year was the same day he committed to Nebraska, January 10th, yesterday. So it's kind of interesting how things go full circle. But anyway, he brings experience to the offensive line. I think he had 743 snaps last year. He brings a bona fide starter. You look at this Nebraska offensive line, and it's just another player that can beef up that position. And when you look at what Nebraska's done in the transfer portal with the additions that they've had, with the exception in this case of maybe Bly Hill, they got Isaiah Nayor, Dante Dowdell, and Micah Mazzccua. And if you want to help out your quarterback, you got to surround him with, things that can, aid in his success. And we have an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, and a running back. And I think they've done a really good job of identifying areas, even with just these three moves of, things that they've needed. And Mazzccua is another example of that. He's another former Texas guy. He played at Baylor. So I really like this move. I think, you can never have too much line depth. And I feel really good about the offensive line this coming season. And I feel really good about the future of the line. And so this just adds to it. I'm excited. I'm excited to see the steps they take. And, I think they did, fairly well last year, certainly an improvement from the year before. And now they have another body of veteran, in this case, stature to add to the room.
Yeah, I mean, a quality starter. He started 11 games this year, missed a game because he was hurt a little bit, but started also 10 games for Baylor in 2022. He started, 21 games over the past 2 seasons in major, Power 5 college football. So I think that's a great addition to this lineup. He could be a left guard, and, that opens things up a little bit too. If Turner Corcoran is going to, maybe they see him as the left tackle to compete with Teddy. Maybe they want to leave him there, or if there's, an injury, it gives you even more depth. You've got now Teddy and Turner Corcoran. You've got Mazzccua now, Ethan Piper, Ben Scott, Toski, Justin Jenkins, Bryce Benhart. You've got a lot of guys who have started games and played a lot of snaps for you. Plus, that doesn't even mention Gunnar Gatula, who's coming into his second year, who I think is going to be a pretty good player. And then Gibson Pyle and Grant Brixer, who I don't know if they're going to get on the field next year, but I think that they're going to push, to get on the football field. And they're at least going to make it, where those guys have to up their game to keep them off the field. So I love the depth that we have. I love the young players that we have. And I just love that across the board, there's just quality depth, like I just said. And it's something we haven't seen in this offensive line. And it really is amazing to see the transformation of the offensive and defensive lines really under Matt Rule. And some of that with the defensive line was just getting the most out of the guys that were here. But man, Nebraska's play in the trenches. Like, if you want to look at one thing that Matt Rule did really well in year one, he transformed that. And now if it looks like he's transformed the quarterback position. And so, like I said, I feel really good about where Nebraska sits, going into this next 3-4 year window.
I do too, and Donovan Raiola has a lot to work with. I almost said Dylan, and he has a lot to work with too on the offensive side of the ball. But Donovan has a lot to work with. He has a lot of different linemen with a lot of different skill sets. But the one thing they all have in common is that they're physical. They're punishing. They can finish their blocks, and a lot of them, Mazzccua included, are good at run blocking. And even though I think our offense is going to stray a little bit away from the run in terms of how much we ran last year, for example, I think running is still going to be a big part of the offense, and you need punishers in there to create lanes and get the job done. So I think Mazzccua is another example of this, and I'm happy we were able to land him because I really felt we missed out on him last year.
Yeah, man, you have to love the attitudes of the guys, the offensive linemen of this team. Like, if you've seen those videos of Mazzccua fighting the Tennessee players, and he just has that reputation too as being just a mauler. His pass blocking.
And I want that. I mean, some people may be like, no, it's bad for the program. I want that. I want my lineman to be nasty. I'd take a 15-yard fighting penalty over a lineman who doesn't care at all. because
Yep.
we've
No,
seen that, and that's awful. A lineman
yeah,
who
no,
doesn't care at all is 15 times worse.
no, man. I want the lineman that like someone hits a dirty hit on Dylan Raiola, like all 5 guys are ready in that guy's face, ready to take him down. Like that's
And I
what I
think we have
want.
those guys. We have those
You
guys.
know? Yeah, like I don't think yeah, like Gibson Pyle, Gunnar Gatula, I mean, and Preston Timoa, I even forgot about him, but
Yeah.
that's 4 young guys I'm really excited about. And then all these guys coming back. Yeah, it's exciting. And just having a quality offensive line means a lot. I do believe you're right in the sense they're not going to run the ball like they did last year. I definitely don't think we're going to see Dylan designed like, there might be a few draw plays and maybe a few speed options, but they're not going to be running Dylan Raiola QB
He's the
power.
Ferrari. You don't run him,
Like,
up the
yeah,
middle. You do
yeah,
not do
please
that.
don't. Keep him safe. I mean, it's like Michigan did with McCarthy. They ran McCarthy when they really needed to in the really big games, but most of the time, they let the other guys do it. And that's how Nebraska should be. Like if we're playing Ohio State, and we need some first downs, like sure, Dylan Raiola, go run, but please slide. Like that's how I feel about it. But
yeah.
But Dante Dowdell and Emmett Johnson and Gabriel, like I hope everybody sticks around in that running back room because man, I feel like they're all going to get chances. There's not, I do think that obviously there's going to be a pecking order, but all those guys, if they all stick around here, they're going to get opportunities behind this offensive line. So I hope that they all stick it out because I really like how they all, add something to the room. I love how Gabe, is another power back. I think that Emmett Johnson is a really good back, and he can carry the ball 15 times a game. I don't know if he can make it 20 times a game, but having him as part of a 1-2 punch, Ramir, we've seen what he can do as a third down back and special teams guy. So I hope that all those guys are, on the team next August.
Well, I mean, I think, and you saw even when we were, a run first offense last year, we were begging for Emmett Johnson to get more carries. So I don't know if if this running back room is going to get a ton per se to begin with, but I think it does provide them the flexibility in the running back room and the option to do so. And the best thing you can do is have a balanced offense, and I think we're trending toward that for the first time in, man, probably 10 years. Because
It's been a
Nebraska,
while.
you knew Adrian Martinez was running, and that was pretty much the end of that.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what they do with this play action game and just a more talented quarterback to make those kind of throws, especially those those deep throws and those throws across the middle where you just have to have some zip on the ball and you have to have some accuracy. So yeah, that'll be fun to watch. And so there are some other guys, still on the board in the transfer portal. Jamal Banks, also Stephon Thompson. Stephon Thompson, the linebacker, has been projected to Nebraska by a few experts. On 3prediction.com. On the On3 prediction machine has Nebraska, the heavy favorite there. And Banks. Sean Callahan wrote today again that he still thinks that Banks is going to be, a Cornhusker. I don't know if he's waiting on a decision from like JJ McCarthy or Jim Harbaugh or anything, but like I said, I don't see that coming this week. I feel like that's, a pretty accelerated timeline unless Jim Harbaugh decides that nope, I'm staying at Michigan. I just don't see, the timeline of it happening this week where he meets with an NFL team and is gone. It could happen that quickly. You never know. But at any rate, I feel like Banks is going to be N2 for Nebraska.
I would love him. He's another explosive receiver. He's a deep threat. He's a playmaker. He's extremely athletic, and it would just be another weapon to add to the room and another veteran weapon so that Malachi and Jalen Lloyd and Demetrius Bell and, Ja'Cory Barney, again, more depth. All these guys can continue to develop. And, that's a really good thing. And you can never have too many wide receivers because I remember – I'm not going to name names, but I remember a couple of years ago when we were trotting out some wide receivers and we were like, what the heck are we doing here? And now we have, options and, choices that we can go with. And that's always a good thing too.
Yeah, lots of depth options there. And Banks is a guy that has over 600 yards the past 2 seasons with Wake Forest. So, I mean, it would give you, Banks, Nayor, Coleman, Lloyd, Doss, a lot of different guys that you could, throw the football to. So yeah, I mean, the thing I like about it is they're adding transfer portal guys at key positions of need, right? Thompson's a linebacker. They lost Reimer and Heinrich last year. He's got 10 career sacks. He knows this system from being at Syracuse. So that he can step in right away. Bly Hill is a guy that I feel like his best football's ahead of him, and they got a steal there. So, beyond that, I mean, you look at the two deep on both sides, and there's not a lot of glaring weaknesses. There's a quality player, somebody that has a chance to be a quality player at every single position. So I feel really good about where this team stands going into spring ball. It will be interesting to see if they do get in on any of those recruits. I mean, maybe there's a 5-star wide receiver I think that just decommitted from Alabama, so maybe something like that. But yeah, other than that, I think that they feel pretty good about where they stand, and I think they're pretty close to where they want to be numbers wise. I'm sure there'll be some more attrition in the spring after the depth chart gets a little more solidified. So I think they're right. In terms of roster building, I think they're right where they need to be, and I think they're just about finished. With this 2024 team, I'm sure they'll be. Maybe with injuries or whatever, there might be another addition post spring, but I think they're, for the most part, this roster is pretty much set, and I feel very good about where it's at right now.
I'm excited for the spring game, and I know I said that last show, but I really am. I'm excited to see what this team kind of looks like, and I know the spring game doesn't tell everything, but I'm excited about how this could shake out.
And so now let's switch. We'll talk some hoops here before we wrap up today's episode here of the Husker Big Red podcast. And what a night it was, man, on Tuesday night for Nebraska. Matt Rule stormed the court with everybody else. Fred Hoiberg gets his defining win, 88-73, and it really wasn't even that close. They went on that run at the end of the first half. And, man, I have to say, if you haven't listened to the Kent, the radio broadcast, like, you got to go listen to it, man. Like, it's so awesome. Kent was totally on that night, and yeah, it was great. What did you think about it?
I thought it was awesome, and to be honest with you, I didn't really think that the Purdue game was the defining win for Fred. I honestly thought it was 2022 against Creighton, because that's when I felt that the tide started to turn a little bit. We were kind of down and out up to that point, and then they beat Creighton in 2022, and I thought, maybe they got something here. And now I think that this Purdue game was his signature win, but I thought that the Creighton game was kind of defining as to okay, we've had so many ups and downs. Can we beat a ranked team? Can we beat a top tier team? And I thought Creighton kind of answered that, and then this Purdue game, that it was just crazy to watch, because they completely, not completely, but they made life difficult for Zach Edey, and they did everything that they tried to do against Wisconsin on Saturday against Purdue. They defended the inside. They were very quick in their rotations. They defended the perimeter well, and any sort of run that Purdue had, Nebraska answered immediately. And I thought that was pretty telling as well, because you could tell that they wanted to win this game badly, and they shot the lights out from three. So I just thought it was a good all-around team win. I mean, Sam Hoiberg getting involved in the passing lanes. I mean, he keeps proving, not just to me, but I think in general, that he's not just a Nepo baby, that he can play basketball. And so I think it was really cool to see everybody contribute. I mean, Kesey was, some of the shots he puts up, he's like triple teamed, and he'll just throw it up and he makes it. And I don't know how the heck he does that, but I mean, he was impressive. Josiah Alec, I thought, held his own very well against Edey. Edey was very physical, and he actually got called for some fouls. Edey did, which I was surprised, because usually they don't call any fouls. But I thought it was a good overall team win, and so many people and players contributed, and I thought the coaching staff did a good job of sticking to the game plan, and that's what it takes to beat number one. And I think it also showed that as long as you give Zach Edey trouble, and as long as you throw as many bodies at him as you can, then you might have a chance to beat Purdue. And I think if I'm any other team who wants to play Purdue, I look at the Nebraska tape and see how you can stop them, because they're very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I think they've beaten like 5 top 10 teams this year, but there is a way to beat Purdue, and it all starts with stopping Zach Edey.
Yeah, and I thought the key for Nebraska, the two stats I thought that were the most, key for the wins outside of the 3-point shots, defensively, was the fact that Edey only got 10 shots up and that he only had 1 assist, because that's what can kill you with him is either he'll, dominate you all night, or he'll just, if you double down on him, they'll just be raining threes all night. And I thought Nebraska, even though Purdue made a lot of threes, they didn't get a lot of wide open threes, and they didn't collapse down a ton on Edey. They really trusted their guys to defend him and be pesky, and they did a great job. They did a great job of keeping the ball away from him and forcing those guys to make shots. And they did make shots, but Nebraska just made more, 14 three-pointers. That's exactly what they needed to do. It reminded me when they beat Kansas, like in 2002, I think it was, and they just were raining threes. I loved it. CJ Wilcher, I think, needs a shout out. He's been spectacular this year coming off the bench. I don't see how, like, he's got to be in the conversation for 6th man of the year in the Big Ten Conference. I mean, he has been just, unbelievable. And Nebraska added, all these transfers, pushed him to the bench. He could have pouted, he could have, wallowed, and he could have left via the transfer portal, but he didn't. He stepped up his game, and he's been as good this year as, for what we expected. He's exceeded expectations more than any other player on the roster. I
think this is his best year in the program, honestly. I really do.
Oh yeah,
he's
definitely
finally shooting consistently, and
his defense has been spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
I think this guy's gonna.
I think he tried to find a role. Like last couple of years, he tried to see where he would fit, and he tried to do almost too much. And now, I think he's right where he needs to be and where he feels comfortable, and he doesn't have to do too much because there's other guys around him that can make plays.
And I just think that that's a microcosm of this whole team, right? Because when you win, it's when everybody finds their role and accepts their role. And I just respect guys that, I'm sure CJ wants to play 30, 35 minutes a night, and he's not getting those minutes, but every single second he's on that floor, he's given it everything he's got. And he's been this guy's, he might not play in the NBA, but he's played well enough. He's going to play professional basketball somewhere, like in Europe or whatever. He's definitely good enough. And I think you can say that about a lot of guys on this team. Rink Mast, obviously Casey, Bryce Williams. There's a lot of guys that even if they don't play in the NBA that are going to play at the next level. And they all have just, fit into their roles. Like Sam Hoiberg, like you said, just scrappy as hell every time he gets out there. Josiah Leak, whether he's, starting or coming. He went from a starter to a bench player, and it was nothing. It made zero difference to him. The effort was the exact same. And when you have guys that are willing to give up, willing to sacrifice for the greater good of the team, that's when you win. And that's why, beyond all the talent, I just feel like that this team truly is a team. They're a fist, they're a family, and they're willing to give up whatever for each other. And so, after that win, they're in a great spot to make the NCAA tournament. Joe Lenardi, it was interesting. They dropped him out of they were in the first 4 out after the Wisconsin game. They hasn't redone the bracket yet. They're going to be in now. And you look at their record, they're 13-3. They have 3 quad 1 wins, and all of those were, they weren't that close. Really, the Michigan State game was somewhat close, but you got the margin of victory in those 3 wins has got to be double digits on average. So I feel like Nebraska, as long as they don't completely fall off the wagon, in the last couple months of the season, they're in a very good spot to get to the NCAA tournament.
And the Cornhusker coaching career of Fred Hoiberg has been quite the roller coaster, hasn't it? 7-25 in his first season, 2 conference wins. Even as early as 2021, 2022, he was 10-22 with a 4-16 conference record. Now he's, 13-3, 16 wins last year. He's definitely, I think, going to pass that mark of 16 wins. And it's just been really you don't see a coach get as much leeway to build a program and have as many ups and downs as he has. And I think that's also a credit to Trev Alberts, because, Trev came out last year and said he had faith in Hoiberg, and he's showing it. And quite honestly, Fred is making him look pretty good right now.
Yeah, it all starts with Trev Alberts, man. He definitely deserves credit. Matt Rule credits him all the time, and that's for a reason, because these guys know, if you don't have the leadership and the support in leadership, it makes it very difficult, And when we had these other guys, it was so awesome to me that Trev Alberts was there and went onto the floor. I'm pretty sure that he was right next to Matt Rule going onto the court. I love that he's that invested in Nebraska, because that's who he is. He played for this program. Not basketball, obviously, but he played for the Cornhuskers, and he knows what it means. So it's not just a job for Trev Alberts. He truly, he likes getting paid and stuff, but he truly wants to see this team succeed. And it's not just about the paycheck for him. And I believe that with Matt Rule too. And that's why I'm just so excited about this team and this program and where they're headed, football and basketball, because they've got the right coaches. Like Fred Hoiberg is doing exactly what we thought he was going to do. It took him a little bit longer than we thought, but he's the last 2 seasons is exactly what you thought Fred Hoiberg was going to get. And good on Trev Alberts for letting him see that through. And now we've got a pretty damn good, basketball coach. Like you look at the coaches in the Big Ten, and I think Fred Hoiberg is definitely, in the upper echelon of those coaches, in my opinion, right now.
And I feel like you can see his coaching style and the way they play defensively, just scrappy, attacking, very kind of, pressure all in your face, sort of, they're not going to give up an easy basket. And, I think that's a credit to Coach Hoiberg, because I think, the teams that he's coached here have all at least tried to play that way. Now these last 2 years, he's found the personnel for, what he deems best and, where he wants to go.
Well, I think, it's like you've said so many times. I mean, he brought in, some different assistants on the coaching staff. And it reminds me of what John Beilein did at Michigan. He had the great offensive mind, but he had to bring in, and get the defensive side of the ball where it is. And Fred has always been one of the best offensive minds in basketball. There's no question about that. Now that they're getting it done on the defensive side, like you could see offensively all the great sets and things that he's running. So, yeah, they're playing really high level on both ends. So, it's going to be exciting. Iowa on Friday night, man. I love that matchup. I hope we take down the Hawkeyes again.
Yeah, it's a tough week, but I think this week is going to tell a lot about the program. I mean, I think this season kind of already has, but I think another win on Friday would be pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie, pretty sweet.
It would be very sweet. So we're looking forward to that. And we'll wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for joining us. Before we go, please make sure if you haven't, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Go into the comments section, hit the like button, and we'll be back on Saturday morning for another Husker Big Red chat. So come join us. Hopefully we are celebrating another victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes, the team that we love to beat more than any other. And I'm predicting a victory on Friday. I haven't even looked into the matchup that much, but I just believe in this team. So we're going to beat those guys. So come celebrate with us on Saturday morning. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.